Hi, my name is Jessica Short and I'm with the Montgomery County Gazette, and I'm here today with Dr. Walter Wilkerson of the Montgomery County Republican Party. He has been the county party chairman since 1964 and has helped keep Montgomery County red for over 30 years, with not a single Democratic candidate in office to this day. On June 26, 2018, the Montgomery County Republican Party held their biennium reorganizational meeting, during which they adopted an entirely new set of bylaws from the bylaws which hadn't been in place for over 20 years, 25 years?
25 years.
25 years. So today I'm here to speak with Dr. Wilkerson regarding these changes and how they will affect the party going forward and how he plans to continue working for Republican candidates and the voters in Montgomery County. Now, to begin with, as you may notice, we are not at Montgomery County headquarters. This is due to the fact that every July that you close the headquarters down?
Yeah.
How long have you done this?
Oh, for 10 years or so. Mm-hmm. We have over 50 volunteers that come and staff our headquarters Monday through Friday, and we've always felt that the month of July was a good time to give everybody time off. Mm-hmm. A lot of vacations and all. So this is what we've done for many years.
Mm-hmm. And I guess all employees, volunteers, and precinct chairs are aware of this?
Yes.
Every year? Has anyone ever complained about this practice during your time?
Not to my knowledge, and no one's ever complained about it. Certainly not the people that do the work.
Has there ever been any type of business conducted during this time whenever the Republican Party is shut down? Do you ever do any kind of announcements or special things from the Republican Party?
Well, the work of the party goes on. It's just our volunteers that staff the headquarters that we give time off. The work of the party goes on, and if there's something comes up or if I need to do something, I'm always on top of it.
Mm-hmm. Now, recently a press release was actually sent out from the steering committee to several media organizations, which was labeled as coming from the Republican Party steering committee, and even included a quote from you which stated that you would have no problem working together with the steering committee. Have you called for or been invited to any meetings of the steering committee since it's been in place?
Well, according to their bylaws, I'm a member of the steering committee, one of nine people, and but interestingly enough, even though I'm the elected chairman of the party and I preside over the meetings of the executive committee, I'm not allowed to preside over the meeting of the steering committee. That's what they call an executive vice chairman, who of course is appointed by them.
Mm-hmm. But have they given you any kind of schedule for these meetings?
They have a meeting. They claim they had a meeting today, and I told them that I already had an engagement and I probably wouldn't be able to be there. They were planning to meet at 10 o'clock.
Okay. Have any of the members of the steering committee reached out to you since June 26th meeting, and have you reached out from just opening discussions?
I've had discussions with several people, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Has the steering committee asked for any kind of authorization to take administrative actions or do, like issue press releases during this time that the headquarters is shut down? Or
not press releases, no. Mm-hmm. They have asked for check writing privileges, and I'm the only one that has check writing privileges, and it will remain that way unless, of course, the bank makes a different decision about that. But I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm the only person that's allowed to write checks.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And it will remain that way.
Okay. And so this steering committee was created as a result of the bylaws, which were approved on June 26th.
This is their way of taking over control of all the activities of the party, and stripping the county chairman of any authority to make any appointments or to do anything to build a team that will help guide our party.
So in the specific ways that it limits your power, it essentially stops you from from appointing the committees. It prevents you from, you are not the leader of the steering committee or the head of it.
Oh, no.
You are only allowed to preside over the executive committee meetings.
That's what I understand. That's
what you can
that's
do.
about it, yeah. And I've made a joke about it that I would even need to get a meeting of the steering committee to go to the bathroom.
Has any member of the steering committee currently, or any of the precinct chairs, ever suggested the creation of a steering committee in the past 2 years or in previous times?
No. The election code, there's no mention of steering committee in the Texas election code.
Mm-hmm. So with the new bylaws, they outline the executive vice chair as the presiding officer of the steering committee. Does this or does this not essentially make him the head of the Republican Party, since the steering committee has to authorize actions taken?
Well, it appears that that's what their goal is, and I'm the only one that can stand in their way, and I intend to exert my authority as elected county chairman. Mm-hmm. None of these people were elected except by the voters in their precinct. I was elected by all the Republican voters in the county. I'm the only official that was elected in that way. Mm-hmm. And the election code specifies that I am the presiding officer of the county party. Mm-hmm.
Has this steering committee consulted with you since June 26 about any kind of goals moving forward, what they would like to do, any type of, you said they had a meeting, did they present you with any kind of agenda for the meeting? Or?
Oh yes, it was a rather lengthy agenda, and they've kept me on their email list, so I'm aware of what some of the things they want to do.
Mm-hmm. So these bylaws in the steering committee, the main reason that they have stated they wanted the steering committee is because they claim that the party was divided, it wasn't modernized enough, and essentially there were a lot of problems within the party that were a result of these bylaws. Now, can changes be made to bylaws in between these reorganizational meetings?
Yes.
What is the process to do so?
It requires a 2/3 vote of those present and voting mm-hmm. in order to amend the bylaw. Mm-hmm. And that will be what will eventually be the reason why we think that this is an illegal takeover of the party.
Mm-hmm. Now, I heard that there was a rules committee which essentially looks over the bylaws for these types of things. Would any bylaw changes have to go through them first for approval before they brought to the committee?
Actually, that's usually the way we try to do things. But someone can introduce an amendment to the bylaw at any meeting. Mm-hmm. It doesn't require any specific thing other than if you are going to do that, you have to give notice mm-hmm. To the executive committee. I believe it's 7-day notice mm-hmm. of what you plan to do.
Mm-hmm. In the past 2 years, have any of the precinct chairs or any members of the steering committee presented any kind of bylaw changes to the executive committee?
No, not until this meeting on the 26th.
When was the first time you heard about these proposed meetings? When was the first time that you had knowledge that they had created a new set of bylaws?
Yeah. Well, the previous bylaws indicate that you have to give certain notice, mm-hmm. and you have to provide a copy of it. Mm-hmm. And they mailed them to the precinct chairs, and they were proper in doing that. And they brought me a copy of it to the headquarters.
So essentially, the first time you saw or heard about these bylaws, it was a finished product?
Yes.
They had not included you in any way in the crafting these bylaws or consulted with you? Were you ever made aware of any kind of meeting of precinct chairs to discuss these bylaws prior to the 26th meeting?
They claimed at the June 26th meeting that they had a meeting, but I wasn't aware of it. I wasn't informed of it.
I guess, what was your first impression upon reading these bylaws?
Well, my first impression was that this was a blatant attempt to overturn the results of a county chair election in which I was the winner, because it stripped me of any authority to make any appointments or to do anything in regard to the party other than to be a member of the steering committee.
Now, did you reach out to these precinct chairs that submitted it once you'd read the bylaws to discuss some of these issues you had with them? Were they receptive of your comments, or what were they?
Well, probably called almost every precinct chairman except those that I knew were part of drawing up the bylaws, but yes, I talked to a lot of them, and many of them were very receptive to what I had to say. But in the end, they apparently were won over by the fact that they thought that more people needed to be involved in the party, and that's certainly a good thing to do, and that's been our goal from the very beginning, is to build a party. But I think you have to build it in the right way, and these people are pursuing a policy that we call small tent policy. I'm a big tent Republican. If people come to our headquarters and say they're Republican, I don't ask them what kind. I don't ask them if they're Tea Party Republican or Conservative Republican or whatever hyphenated term you want to use. If they say they're Republicans, that's good enough for me. But this group of people, they have a goal, and they want to purify, so to speak, the Republican Party and exclude anybody that doesn't agree with them 100%. Years ago, former President Ronald Reagan said, if someone agrees with me 80% of the time, I can work with them and support them. And that's what I believe in a big tent philosophy. We can't all agree on everything. And I asked some of these people, do you ever disagree with your wife? Oh yes. I say, do you get a divorce? No, you don't get a divorce. You work it out. So this small tent policy is going to be detrimental to the Republican Party, not only in Montgomery County, but in the state of Texas. They're fortunate, this group is, that they don't realize that the average voter in Texas is center-right. They're to the right of the center, but they're not far-right. They're conservatives. And so it's amazing when you consider it. If the Democrats were smart, which they're not, they would move toward the center. They would pick up some of these center-right votes who become distressed and irritated with the tactics of this group. But the Democrats have fumbled the ball, and they move further to the left. So these small tent people are very fortunate that has happened, because otherwise, in my opinion and the opinion of a lot of people, more and more people would have voted Democrat in this county. Now, this is one of the fastest growing counties in the country. And I tell people all the time, not everybody that moves to this county is going to be a card-carrying Republican. There are going to be some Democrats. And really, when I started out involved in politics, my goal was to build a two-party system. At that time, the Democrats were in total control of the county, and I thought that that was not good. We ought to have two competitive parties, each have their candidacy that they nominate at the primary election, and then we go to the general election, and we have a Democrat candidate and a Republican candidate, and the voters decide which one they think would be best. And that's not the way it's been. I didn't get in this business to create another one-party system, but that's what has happened. And I am happy, and some of my most ardent enemies think that's crazy, that the Democrats are becoming a little more competitive, because I think it's better for the overall political system in our county. And now, this time, the Democrats are fielding some candidates, and they're not just people that just volunteered to run, but they are credible people. And that means that Republicans have to stick together, and we have to work together in order to be successful. And I think ultimately that will happen. But we can't be sidetracked with all these other items that that some of these people want to pursue. You can't believe some of the things they want to get involved in. So we need to concentrate on building the Republican Party, in my opinion.
Now, a lot of people have claimed that the party is divided. The Republican Party is in shambles. They said that their hands are, the precinct chairs' hands are tied, and they've claimed that it's just a divided party. And in line with the previous question, they've claimed that there's a lot of issues with modernization, and that no one is there's no way for them to get out and reach those voters to become a stronger party together. However, since the last biennial meeting, not June 26th, but the previous one before it, have any of them, I mean, what type of outreach programs does the MCRP currently have for reaching Republican voters?
Well, that's a good question, and that is a false claim that these people have sold to some of the people. And one of them is that we don't do enough social media. We've had a social media person and several people helping him for at least 3 or 4 years, and we have made steady inroads into that particular area. And a lot of them who must spend most of their time day and night on Facebook think that that's the way that the average Republican is going to do that, but that's not the case. A lot of Republicans have a job to do, and they have to work for a living. They don't have time to sit in front of a computer and send out a bunch of stuff on Facebook. And I've told several of these people that have complained to me about that, I said, look, I don't do Facebook personally, but I tell you this, I believe in face-to-face, which is far more effective than talking to people on Facebook. And so voter contact or personal contact is still the best way to win over people. And if these precinct chairs who talk about all this did their job, which most of them have not in the past, then we wouldn't be talking about this. There was one person who spoke at the meeting on the 26th and bragged about how 18 years he'd worked in the Republican Party. And I started to say something, but I didn't want to criticize him in the open meeting. But for years, when we had a goal to contact voters in the precinct by telephone back in the days when telephoning was far more effective than it is now, because a lot of people don't have landlines. I couldn't get this person to do anything. And finally, after years of struggling with that person, I said to him, look, we're going to get a divorce. I'm going to find a Republican in your precinct that will work with the Republican Party and do the work that we know needs to be done. If you want to be precinct chairman, that's fine. You go ahead and be precinct chairman. But it'll be precinct chairman in name only. And that person to this day has been one of the sharpest critics of the Republican Party, and a good portion of these people are not supporting our president. And in particular, several of them have been very critical of President Trump on Facebook and have never acted like they were interested in supporting him at all. So I consider those people as rhinos. They like to call me a rhino, but I consider them a Republican in name only. And they use the Republican Party because of its credibility and the fact that they can identify with an organization. They use that to their advantage, not to the advantage of promoting the Republican Party, but promoting a certain agenda and a special interest on their part.
So just maybe for people who might understand, could you give us just an explanation? What is a precinct chair supposed to do?
That is a good question. The precinct chair is supposed to represent the people, the Republicans in their respective precincts. And they're supposed to work with them and help them become more involved. And they can recruit people to help them do the work of the precinct. The precinct chairman generally is the election judge, and that is a big job. The precinct chairman is supposed to be able to know most of the people in their precinct and to let them know when the Republicans are meeting and what they can do to help. But very little of that is done. And it's very frustrating to hear them talk and see what they do, which is just the opposite of what you would expect a precinct chairman to do. For instance, it's interesting to know, you do a little survey of the results of the county chairman's election, and two of the most outspoken people in this group, one of them is the so-called executive vice chairman. I carried his precinct overwhelmingly, and you would think that he would know that. And the guy that spoke out at the meeting about how he'd worked for 18 years, I carried his precinct too. So they don't really know the people in their precinct, and that's part of their job. They need to organize their precinct. They need to have a vice chairman. They need to have a telephone committee. A lot of things that we recommend that they do, and most of the time they ignore that, and they spend all their time causing dissension and division.
Now, I believe you created another position. I'm not sure if you can tell us, but the position of area chair. When did you institute that position?
Well, that's been 10 or 12 years ago, and in order to decentralize, is like a word they like to use, out into the precinct, I determined that we would divide the county into 7 areas. Each of the 7 areas has a certain number of voting precincts and a certain number of precinct chairs. And the area chairman and the area vice chairman, their job is to be a liaison between those precinct chairs and the party. And so, like for instance, when we have a meeting, they need to be calling their precinct chair, remind them of the meeting, when it's going to be and all. Even though we send out emails and all, it never hurts to make a telephone call and contact the precinct chairs to make sure that they'll be at the meeting. And it had been working relatively well in certain areas where the area chairs have done their job, and I have created that position, and so I appointed them. And now in their bylaws, the chairman does not have the authority to appoint the area chair. They're elected by the precinct chairman in their area. And you don't have to be a precinct chairman to be an area chairman, and a lot of them are not precinct chairmen. But it's just another organizational effort to beef up our precinct organization. And I think that where we have most people that have been involved in this, it has worked very well.
So essentially, say the Republican, just so we have the flow right, you announce that there's going to be a meeting of the executive committee.
Correct.
The area chair finds out. You send out emails, obviously, to everyone, but the area chair finds out, and the area chair informs all the precinct chairs in their area once again, like, here's a meeting. And then it's the precinct chair's job to also inform other Republican citizens that there is a meeting.
Yeah.
So that way, it's just kind of making, it's just...
That's the way it would work to a perfection. It doesn't work as well as that, but that's the idea behind it. And we have some precinct chairs that have done wonderful work, and their precincts show that. They come to meetings, they're involved, and when we, like for a general election, we'll have a campaign committee that will outline exactly what we want to do in the general election, how we want to go about contacting voters. And I'll mention the fact that less than 50% of the people, according to the poll, have a landline. And whereas in years past, we've had this computer program, which was designed by Mark Turnbull, which started in 2002, where instead of having people come to a headquarters or a phone bank and make phone calls to get people to vote, we give them a list of Republican voters, and on their home computer they can access this list, make their phone calls from home, so they don't have to drive to Conroe or drive to a phone bank. Now that has become almost obsolete because of the change in people's habits about phones. And if you'll notice, the phone book is not near as thick as it used to be.
We just got ours in the mail, it's one about this thing.
Yeah, that's right. And it is possible to get cell phone numbers, but it is exorbitantly expensive. So we have resorted to telling the precinct chairs, look, we can provide you a list of Republican voters in your precinct for the past 3 elections. Those that voted in the primary, those that voted in the runoff, and those that voted in the general election. That's what we call a 3R. Somebody that voted in all 3 elections. Those are prime examples of people that are going to vote in every election, and they are actually the best possible person you can call about helping do some work. And the other thing you can do is that we'll provide you a street list from this computer program that all the Republican voters on Smith Avenue, or whatever the case may be, that you can knock on their door and talk to them and make sure that they vote. And we also have had door hangers, in which we would hang door hangers on the door, which we did in 2016, and we hung over 45,000 door hangers in the county. So the criticism about modernization is a bunch of bunk, because we've had this system for years. We can provide that list free of charge to the precinct chair. Now, if some candidate wants that list, we do make a charge for that, because there's a fee that it costs us to produce that. But these street lists are really great for precinct chairs to have, and they know exactly where the Republicans are in their precinct on these streets. But a lot of these precinct chairs that are complaining about this, they don't use that, they don't access it. All they want to do is to create division, controversy, and I call it chaos, because that's the only way they're happy. If things are going good and we're doing great, they're not happy at all. They got to have something wrong, something they can complain about.
Now, they say, they claim a lot of things need to be modernized. Now, you've explained these procedures that they have, that these phone banks, they just reach out to voters. Have any of them in the past 2 years suggested any ideas for modernization to the party? Have any of these precinct chairs volunteered to be on, such as the social media committee, for helping to help get the word out about the Republican
Not
Party?
to my knowledge. Scott Baker, who's one of my precinct chairs, is an excellent example of a person who has done the work, and he heads up our social media. He has a company that is involved in that sort of thing. He's done an excellent job, and as far as I know, if any of them have contacted him, I'm not aware of it. If they're running it, of course they like it, but if it's not run by them, it's bad.
Now, I guess now we're going to get into some, more tougher questions, essentially. Could you gave a very passionate speech at the REC meeting on June 26th, right before the vote for the bylaws, in which you explained how the big tent versus small tent, and how this was meant to take away power from you as a county chairman. What could you maybe expound just a little bit on what you see the current state of the Republican Party is in? Do you see it as a house divided? What state is the Republican Party in right now?
Well, I would say I would divide it into the really true Republicans and those that use the Republican Party as an agenda promoting of their own. And there's no question but what this has been present for years. I've known Mr. Yolick since he first moved to Montgomery County in the late 1990s. And he and I have very rarely ever been on the same page. And I think that's unfortunate. He is a very talented man, and I'm sure he thinks that what he's doing is in the best interest of our county. I do not think that that's the case. I'm not opposed to having him be called the Golden Hammer or have whatever he does on Facebook, because I don't read it. But he's a typical person that thrives on chaos. He has to create some sort of chaos in order to be happy, in order to feel like he's doing something. And he is good at that, no question about it. And he has a tendency to stretch the truth like anybody I've ever seen. And I've had many people come to me and ask me, what can we do? And I say, as far as I'm concerned, the best thing to do is ignore him, because he thrives on attention, and I think he wants to pride himself as being a kingmaker, being a big guy that decides who's going to win and who's going to lose. And but I've known him for a long time. He hasn't changed one iota over all the years that I've known him. And there are people out there in this world like that every day. You can meet them. You probably know some people like that yourself. They're never happy unless they're unhappy. Mm-hmm. So it's really, really sad. And being a retired physician, I recognize that, because I had to treat a lot of people like that.
Mm-hmm. What do you believe? What's the first step that you believe needs to be taken in order to actually achieve unity in this party, to make the party stronger?
Well, the first thing we need to do, we need to have all our precinct chairs on the same page. And my goal and my duty as county chairman is to accomplish that. And we have come to the stage in our county where slate cards are the big deal. And you expect voters to be a little bit informed about not only who their precinct chairman is, but who the candidates are. But we have so many people that are like robots. They take a slate card and they do what somebody else tells them to do. And it's pretty sad that we've come to that. And that's the reason why these slate cards have been effective for them, particularly in this last primary election, in which they were able to replace some of our long-standing, hard-working precinct chairs with people who are going to do what the leaders tell them to do. And so we have to have a means of combating that, and we have plans to do that now. Mm-hmm. And that will be a part of our action as a party leader, to overcome or at least be competitive in this slate card battle. Mm-hmm. And but you're never going to have voters who are informed on every candidate. I understand that. Mm-hmm. But if you are going to vote for somebody, you at least ought to know something about who they are. And a good example of that, we had one of our long-standing precinct chairs who had always worked for the party, and they found somebody that would fill out an application to run against him. And so they did. He got on the ballot, and on election day, our precinct chairman was there campaigning, and there were two ladies passing out these slate cards. And so he, you know, being a nice guy that he was, he went over, just engaged them in conversation, and asked them, say, do you know my opponent? And both of them said no. Do you know anything about my opponent? No. We were just called on the phone and asked to come pass out these cards. And so my precinct chairman, the precinct chairman went back over to his wife and he said, you know what? I'm not really running against a person. I'm running against a piece of paper. And that's what's sad about where we've come in our election process, where a piece of paper means more than knowing who someone is and what someone has done in the past, their record of commitment to the Republican Party. So this person that defeated this precinct chairman, on his application, he refused to give his phone number or his email address. So 4 times I wrote him a letter. I said, we need that information so we can communicate with you, let you know when we're going to have meetings. I never got an answer. So far as I know, he didn't even show up for that June 26th meeting, which was good in a way. But that's an example of the kind of people that generally they recruit. People that were told by them that, well, what does a precinct chairman do? And they say, oh, you don't have to do any work. You know, you just come to the meetings 4 times a year and vote like we tell you to. And so that's the kind of people that get to be precinct. Now, some of them are good. I'm not saying every one that they recruit is not good. But for the most part, nobody knows who they are, and they're not going to be involved in really doing the work of the party.
Now, by these slate cards, you mean the voter guides passed out by cities?
Well, whatever you want to call them, I call them slate cards.
Yes.
And
just for clarification for viewers of that.
In other words, it's a card that has on there who they recommend you vote for.
Do you think these voters, now, one of the parts on the new bylaws that they want to do is they want the Republican Party to endorse candidates. Has the Republican Party ever endorsed candidates in the past, or is it?
Our bylaws, the present bylaws that were overturned, prohibit the party from endorsing in primary and runoff election. The bylaws that they passed continue the same thing. We also had for years that we did not endorse but become involved in nonpartisan elections, like city council or school board. But as time has gone on, we thought, well, this is something that people call to our headquarters all the time. They want to know, who are the Republicans? Which one of these people running are Republican? And, you know, we really can't say. So at the meeting on the 26th, when the motion was made to keep our present bylaws, we offered an amendment to allow the party to become involved in nonpartisan elections. For instance, in city council race, if people want to know which one's a Republican, the party would identify that person as a Republican by making sure they had voted in the primary. And that's how you really register as a Republican, by voting in the primary. Well, they voted this down, mainly because it's in their bylaws, and that's fine. Times change, and I understand that, and I think it's good that people want to know who the Republicans are on the ballot, and so this would have given us an opportunity to do that.
Right, so essentially there were some provisions in the new bylaws which could be useful, such as in getting involved in nonpartisan elections.
Yes.
However, would you say that it seemed more like it was an all or nothing situation, where the other side was not willing to compromise on these issues and come together with the rest of the precinct chairs to discuss these things, to create a set of bylaws which would be more encompassing and work for the majority of the precinct chairs?
Well, of course, one of their big selling points they tried and they convince some people that what you're saying is true. But our old bylaws for years had a shared authority. The county chairman had the authority to appoint the chairman of our standing committees and 40% of the members. And the executive committee, the precinct chairs, had the authority to appoint 60%. For instance, in the old bylaws, we have 6 standing committees. One of them was the vacancy committee, which is charged with filling vacancies for precinct chairs, and that had 12 members. The other committees could have as few as 5, but we always had at least 20 on there. So that meant the county chairman could appoint the chairman, who is included in the 40%, which is 8, and the executive committee, the precinct chairs, had the authority to appoint 12. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's a shared authority. The executive committee could appoint all 12 of their members, and the county chairman could only appoint 40% or 8 of them. And so it's not like I was ruling with an iron fist. It was a shared opportunity. But that was not, in my opinion, the overall purpose of these bylaws, and that was to overturn the results of the election. What they couldn't accomplish by defeating me at the polls, they wanted to accomplish with the bylaws. And so where have we seen that in action? By who? By Democrats. The Democrat Party has tried to overturn the results of the presidential election. And this, in my opinion, is exactly what they tried to do in terms of the county chairman election. Now, ironically, my opponent, Mr. Boggs, we've become good friends. Now, we don't always agree on all the issues, but we've become good friends. And he is not a big proponent of these bylaws that were passed. And I'm sure he's received a lot of criticism about that, because if you don't agree with them 100%, you're on their list. And you're subject to all kinds of smears and lies and everything that you can imagine. So I'm well aware of that, and that's the reason I don't do Facebook or any of the other junk out there, because people come and tell me what they said about me, and but I'm telling you, the outpouring of support since all this happened is unbelievable. And in particular from Republican women's groups. They recognize what's going on. And without Republican women, our party would be in deep trouble. They do a tremendous job for our party. And to give you an example, I got a call the other day from a lady I've known for years. She happens to be 97 years old, and she lives in Willis, and she used to work in the county clerk's office. Her name is Beth Bailey. And Beth was one that used to work in the elections for the county clerk. Back in those days, the early days, when I first got involved, the county clerk ran the elections in our county. And it wasn't until 1982 that we went to an election administrator, which removed the authority to conduct the election to a county election administrator. And they also took over keeping up with the voter registration list. Prior to that, the voter registration list was taken care of by the district clerk, and the county did the work on conducting the election. Now we consolidated that into an appointed office, the county elections administrator, and that occurred in 1982. And it would not have occurred without the work of the Republican Party, because in the 1980 election, we had one voting place in the whole of the Woodlands. Now, of course, it wasn't near as big then as it is now. But they had one polling place. It was where the HEB is on Sawdust Road. It used to be a church there, a Methodist church. And that's where they had the only polling place on the west side of the freeway. On election day, about 5 o'clock, someone called the headquarters and said, Dr. Wilkerson, have you seen the lines that are down at the Woodlands voting box? I said, no, I haven't. He said, you need to go down there. I went down there, and there was at least 300 or 400 people standing in line to vote. And this was at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And remember, this was the first time the Republican Party ever had a candidate for sheriff in Montgomery County in 1980. And so I took the candidate for sheriff with me, and so we worked that line there, handing out cards and so forth, well outside the 100-foot marker. And we stayed there for a couple of hours, and when the polls closed, they came out and said, now everybody's in line. Right now at 7 o'clock, you can vote. The rest of you can't vote. Okay? There still was several hundred people in line. Several hundred. So we stayed there the whole time, and about 7:30, somebody drove down Sawdust Road, lowered the window and said, Jimmy Carter just conceded. The line evaporated. All those people that were standing in line, they were there to vote for the president. Republicans ended up losing the sheriff's race by several hundred votes. And we Republicans said, it's time we have an election administrator. At the time, the county judge was Mickey Dyson. He was appointed county judge. He wasn't elected county judge. The county judge had been Ernest Coker Jr., and he had become a district judge. So the Commissioners Court appointed Mickey Dyson. There was not a Republican on the Commissioners Court. I went to the county judge and explained to him what an election administrator would do. This would concentrate all the work, the voter registration list, and all the work of organizing elections within one department, elections department. And our county deserves to have that. We're getting too big. We can't have the county clerk not assign somebody full-time to do the election. And Beth Bailey was assigned by the county clerk when it came election time to work 2 months organizing the elections. And she remembered how it was. And when she called me, she said, Dr. Wilkerson, I remember when you first became county chairman and you had only 3 places for people to vote Republican. 3 in the whole county. And she talked about it, and she said, I almost brought tears to my eyes. She said, I learned to love you. Said, I love you dearly, and I'm really disappointed with what is happening. I said, Beth, don't worry about it. We're going to right the wrong. Everything will be okay. She's 97 years old. And I've known her forever, and she was a wonderful person. Not just because she loves me, but because she was a wonderful person. But once we established election administrator in 1982, our county has changed drastically in how we have elections. People take it for granted now, you know, but back in those days, it was all paper ballot, all that kind of, yeah. And now we're automated, and Susie Harvey is our election administrator, and she spends 18 hours a day working on elections, making sure that we have fair, safe, and elections that people can have confidence in. And to my knowledge, I think we've only had 1 recount or anything like that in the last 10 or 12 years. We are blessed to have people that spend all that time and that work organizing the county for elections. I'm proud that Republicans had a part in modernizing our election process.
do you need to sign?
Okay.
Okay.
I just did.
Now, the Republican Party in Governor, I think it's, yes, I don't know, just recently a law was signed that starting in 2020, people will no longer be able to just check R or D on their ballots and
One
leave
punch.
the room.
Yeah.
So people are really going to have to start looking at these candidates, who they want to choose, what they want to do, it's going to become important whether they want to vote Democrat or Republican. They're going to have to select these candidates.
Right.
And that is when party unification is going to be a big deal, because you're going to need Republican people together in order to promote the Republican platform. Currently, what do you see as the biggest obstacle in the Republican Party right now that needs to be overcome before unity can be achieved?
Do what?
What do you see as the biggest obstacle right now in the Republican Party, which must be overcome before we can move forward as a party to unification, to doing the things that the party needs to do?
Well, I think I can understand how the party can be divided. We all have likes and dislikes in the primary and runoff, and you know, I have told many people many times over, I'm not pleased with the atmosphere that has been created in some of these races. They're just it just turns people off, and it discourages people from ever considering running for office. If you have someone capable person that would like to run for office, and they see how some of these election campaigns become, a bunch of lies and smears and all that, they say, you know, I don't need this. Why should I put myself out like that? I'd like to serve, but no, I got bigger things to do. So, number one, it discourages people from running for office, not only for elective office like commissioner and so forth, but for precinct chairman. We have a lot of people we try to recruit for precinct chair, and they see what's going on, and they're not interested. They'll help with the party, but they're just not interested in having their family involved in all kinds of trash and everything that some of these people put out. And so I think there's several things that are going to improve. I think people are becoming aware of how bad things have gotten. And I think they will begin to look at the candidates a lot closer than what they have in the past. I remember the day when I was county chairman, just a young guy, and the Democrat chairman was a gentleman named, and I say gentleman because he was, Arnold Smith. And if I needed some advice or about something to do with the elections, I wouldn't hesitate to call Arnold Smith and talk to him about it, and he would tell me what to do. And we became the best of friends. And we used to meet for coffee maybe once a month or every few weeks and just talk politics, because we were both political junkies. And sometimes after I finished talking to him, I said, Arnold, you sound like a Republican. And he would just smile. He wouldn't say anything. But those days are gone. You know, if you talk to a Democrat, some of these Republicans would be on your case in a minute, you know, tell them about how terrible you are, how liberal you are, or whatever term they've figured out to call you. I've been called a little bit of everything, and but I don't let it bother me. I got a job to do. I think I've done the job, and like I said in my talk, if it ain't broke, why fix it? We have had success, and we will continue to have success. No Democrat candidate for district, county, or precinct office has been elected in Montgomery County since 1994. And no Democrat candidate for president has carried this county since 1964. That's not going to change. And no matter what some of these people say, if you think you can improve on that, I think we need to ask how. And if what they mean by improving on it is the way they conduct themselves, I'd say they're losers to begin with.
Now, in your opinion, now some people have pointed out that this entire switching of bylaws seemed very personal. In your opinion, do you think the actions taken by the 39 precinct chairs who voted for, who created, endorsed, and ultimately voted for these bylaws, do you think this, and the formation of the steering committee, do you think it was personally motivated and driven toward that point?
I think there were a significant number of people, I would call fence riders, that were truly thought they kind of agreed with some of the campaign stuff that the other side said, and I don't think it was a personal thing with them. But I would say at least a half or more than those people, those 39 people that voted, it was definitely a personal thing. They wanted to strip any authority that I had as county chairman, so that gave them free rein to do what they wanted to do with the party.
Mm-hmm. So I believe you covered this before, but have any member of the steering committee, the members now or in the past, have they shared open animosity towards you as the county chair?
Well, I don't know about open animosity, but I mean there is a definite dislike, no question about it, in my opinion. So I don't know, you'd have to ask them if there's a hatred.
I certainly hope not.
I hope not too. I don't hate them at all. I feel really sorry in a way for some of their actions.
Now, one thing you had, I believe we spoke just a little earlier, was the fact that some of the members on the steering committee, such as Reagan Reed, the now vice chair, and John Boucher, are also members of political action committees and part of Tea Party groups. Do you think that they will be able to serve on this steering committee without bias, or do you think that bias is going to impact negatively?
Well, I think some of them will have great difficulty in trying to divorce themselves from it. I think there's no question they're wedded to Tea Party. That's part of their being, and they rarely ever participate in Republican activities. If we have a Republican fundraiser, they never participate in that. So they're, I guess we would say they're wedded to the Tea Party, and I have a bit of a problem with that. I don't mind. As a matter of fact, when the Tea Party first started, I was part of the movement because I thought there were good things about it. I still do think they're good things. But I caution some of the people that were organizing the Tea Party to be careful who you put in charge, because there are people out there that will take over their organization and use it for their own personal benefit, not for the benefit of the average Tea Party person. And that has happened, in my opinion.
And would you say that maybe in the same way that these people have taken over some of the Tea Party movements, that they are now working to take over the Republican Party as well?
Oh, there's no question about it, and I'll give them credit, they've made great advancement in that, mainly because of their success with the slate cards on these precinct chair races. And if nothing good comes out of this situation, one thing will hopefully be that people will wake up and understand that they need to know at least who their precinct chairman is, if they're involved in the Republican Party, and what a precinct chair does. Maybe that will be a good outcome of this, because you know, if you just got a robot elected to a precinct chair race and they're not going to do anything to help the Republican Party, we're at a disadvantage. And so it's my job to see to it that we turn this around, and that's what I'm going to dedicate the rest of my term doing, is making sure that the average person understands why it's important for them to be involved, if they want to be involved in the party, is to help the party.
Now, just kind of wrapping this up, the Republican Party currently, until such time that this can all be sorted out, the steering committee, your position, until such time as we can reach a point where everything is sorted out, do you think it's going to cause a disconnect with Republican voters in Montgomery County and possibly even disenchant some Republican voters?
I certainly hope not, and it's my job to see that that doesn't happen. And I have decided to appoint what I call a victory campaign committee, or that will work to strategize for the general election and to assist our candidates. And the people that are caught in the middle of this mess are our candidates, because they understand, you know, to get elected they have to have a certain number of votes. And I understand why some of them look like that they were sort of siding with the Tea Party group. That's fine, I understand that. But now that that's over with, they need to understand they need the party. And I think most of them understand that. I've had a number of them come take me aside and indicate, look, we're not necessarily a part of this movement. And they understand what the party's about, and more so than these people do. And so we're going to work with this campaign committee. What I've done is I've asked every Republican women's organization, and we have 7 of them, to give us one representative, a representative from the Patriots PAC and from the other Tea Party group, and from Betty Anderson's group, and we have 7 high school Republican clubs in our county, and we're working to get more involved in Republican activities at the high school level. The idea being that when they go off to college and their professors tell them, you know, how bad Republicans are, they'll be ready to answer those questions, because that will happen. And so each one of those people, and I've asked Charlie Pareda, who is precinct chairman in 38, which is out at Harvard, what do we call Harbortown, or out by Walden. And I've asked Pat Tibbs, who is the president of the Montgomery County Tea Party, to be vice chairman. And so this committee will work with the party organization to build a campaign, the strategy, and determine what we need to do to make sure that our candidates get elected. I'm confident that the vast majority of people in Montgomery County understand who the Republicans are. And that's what our job will be, is to do that. Now, the Democrats have some credible people. The guy that's running for county judge, I don't know whether you've heard him speak or not, well, the Democrats have 6 or 7 candidates that are credible people. In particular, the guy that's running for county judge, I mean, I've heard him speak several times. He's a capable guy. He's a veteran of the Navy, and he's got some other things in his background that will be a negative for him. But these are people that are going to get some votes, because there are more Democrats in our county than there used to be, contrary to what some of these people say, that they've been converted from Republicans to Democrats. That's not the case. These are people that moved here from other areas of the country that were Democrats when they moved here. And like I've said before and repeat again, that may not be all bad, because we need some competition to get our people focused on who Republicans are and what we need to do. And I think that in the long run will be a positive for it.
So what is your honest opinion of, you've mentioned Eric Young a couple of times, you've known him a while, what is your honest opinion of him and the steering committee? Where do you stand on these 2 things?
Well, I think Eric is the leader of the group overall. He's, as evidenced by the fact that one of them, Reagan Reed, at the meeting the other night, every time there was some little controversy came up, he went over and visited with Eric Yollick. So Eric Yollick more or less runs the organization. I'll often remind people that he also was the authority that recommended that a guy named Jim Jenkins and Adrian Heath and others go register to vote in the Marriott Hotel in the Woodlands so they could vote on a road district election, which was determined to be fraud and illegal by a court. And one of them, Adrian Heath, served 9 months in prison for that. And Mr. Jenkins was convicted, but he's going to be retried because of some technicality that happened when the judge was charging the jury. So if we can say that Eric was the mastermind behind that, it makes you wonder what else he has in mind that might be determined to be illegal.
It might hurt the Republican Party overall.
Well, that's right.
All right. Well, that should be it for now. Thank you very much, Dr. Wilkerson.
Oh.
I greatly appreciate you speaking to me
Well,
today.
I hope I didn't talk too much.
No, you certainly didn't.